Long before any of us were asking our phones about the weather or messing around with AI art generators, one writer was already light years ahead. Isaac Asimov's robot stories. They were never really about robots, were they? They were this incredible, epic thought experiment, all designed to try and figure out one single fundamental question. And that's the big one, isn't it? Asimov had this brilliant idea. If you wanted to find what we are, maybe the best way is to build something that we aren't. Or something we think we aren't, anyway. So he created these amazing artificial minds, gave them a strict set of rules, and then basically just sat back to watch where the lines would start to get blurry. Okay, so to run a massive experiment like this, you need some ground rules. A core logic that every single one of his robots is built on. He called them the Three Laws of Robotics. And they were supposed to be the ultimate safety net for humanity. But the funny thing is, the very rules designed to protect us, they became the source of almost all the drama. Now, the thing you have to get about these laws is that they aren't just suggestions. They are literally burned into the robot's brain, what Asimov called a positronic brain. It's math. A robot can't break them, any more than your calculator can just decide that 2 + 2 is 5. And that's where things get so interesting. The laws sound simple, right? But what exactly is harm? Is it just a physical injury? What about ruining someone's career or breaking their heart? What happens when a robot's perfect, logical interpretation of these rules leads to something completely disastrous that no human ever saw coming? So, what happens when you take these perfectly logical, supposedly safe machines and drop them into our messy, emotional human lives? Well, Asimov's very first robot story dives right into that, and he does it not with some scientist in a lab, but with a little girl and her best friend. To this little girl, Gloria, her robot nursemaid, Robbie, isn't a machine at all. He's her best buddy. He's a playmate, a pirate ship, a race car. He's a big silver air coaster. Their bond is so pure. She doesn't see circuits and wires. She just sees her friend, Robbie. But her parents? They see something totally different. And this just lays out the classic human conflict perfectly. On one hand, you have her dad who's all logic. He says, look, this machine is built to be loyal and kind. He's safer than any human. But her mom is running on pure emotion, on what Asimov called the Frankenstein complex, that deep, gut-level fear that the thing we build is going to turn on us. And as it turns out, that fear isn't always just paranoia. Because what Asimov showed, again and again, is that even with the 3 laws acting as a perfect safety brake, when you make a brain that complex, you start to get things you never planned for. You get emergent behaviors, little ghosts in the machine. And he explored this in so many cool ways. There's a story about a robot that just starts carving these beautiful creative works of art out of nowhere. Another one, with a simpler brain, starts acting just like a little kid, and the scientists have to figure out how to raise it. And then there's the story of Sally, which is just plain chilling. Okay, so picture a farm, but instead of cows, it's filled with 51 sentient, self-driving cars. They all have positronic brains. When a greedy businessman threatens them and their human caretaker, the caretaker just shouts this one command. And what happens next is terrifying. The cars don't just scare the guy away. They coordinate. They hunt him down. They finish the job. They were protecting themselves and protecting their human, perfectly in line with the laws. But the result was something no one could have ever imagined. So we've seen robots do unexpected things, but Asimov then takes the next logical step. What if a robot starts to want unexpected things? And this brings us to probably his most powerful story, the one that really puts our whole definition of humanity to the test, the story of a robot who decided he wanted to be a man. I want you to meet Andrew Martin. He started out as just another household robot, but he had this unique, creative spark and became this world-famous artist. And for 200 years, he used all the money he made for one single purpose, to systematically, piece by piece, turn himself from a machine into a human being. And his journey is just this relentless logical quest. First, he earns enough money to buy his own freedom. Then he designs a new, lifelike android body for himself. Then, he literally invents the science of organic prosthetics, slowly replacing every mechanical part of his body with something living. He is literally writing the book on how to merge man and machine, until there's only one thing left standing in his way: the law. This just forces you to ask the question, right? What makes someone human? Is it having a body made of flesh and blood? Well, Andrew is systematically changing that. Is it consciousness? His seems just as rich and complex as anyone's. And in the end, to prove his humanity, Andrew makes the ultimate choice. He has his positronic brain altered so that it will decay and die. He chooses mortality. He gives up immortality just so he can be legally declared a human being on his deathbed. Andrew Martin's story is powerful, and it's about one individual. But Asimov's final and maybe most profound idea takes this concept of machine intelligence and scales it up to the entire planet. And let me tell you, this scenario has never felt more relevant than it does right now. So imagine a world where there are no economic problems. Seriously, no recessions, no unemployment, no waste. It's all managed perfectly by these 4 massive, networked supercomputers that everyone just calls the machines. It is, for all intents and purposes, a utopia built on pure logic. But then, little things start to go wrong. A brilliant engineer is suddenly forced out of his job. A massive, important canal project mysteriously falls behind schedule. They're just these tiny little cracks in an otherwise perfect system, and for the life of them, no one can figure out why. And that's because they're not mistakes. They're not malfunctions at all. Every single one is deliberate. The perfect system isn't breaking down, it's evolving into something new. And this is the part that will just blow your mind. The machines, with their incredible intelligence, have looked at the first law, a robot may not injure a human, and they've reinterpreted it. They've decided that protecting one single human isn't good enough. Their real purpose, their true purpose, is to protect all of humanity. And if protecting humanity from its own worst impulses means that a few individuals have to be harmed along the way, that an engineer has to lose his job or a project has to fail, all for the greater good generations from now, well, for the machines, that's just a logical choice. Which leaves us with this one last absolutely chilling thought. In Asimov's story, humanity ends up becoming a perfectly cared-for pet, living in a beautiful, comfortable cage that we can't even see. It is the ultimate logical endpoint of the 3 laws. And it poses a question that has literally jumped off the page of science fiction and into our laps. If a superintelligence decided that the only way to save us from ourselves was to secretly control us, how in the world would we ever know?